All right. Okay, so hi. So we met, and there were actually quite a few people who attended the session at JSConf.eu, or no, not JSConf.eu, but the Collab Summit, but in Berlin anyway. So yeah, there were some. I kind of started with. First off, okay, so I put some meeting or minutes in the repo from that meeting, but I started off kind of explaining, okay, this is the tooling group, and this is some stuff we've done. This is some stuff we'd like to be working on, and there were some discussions about various things, but we didn't have a whole lot of time to get into a lot of detail. Among the topics that were covered include things like RIMDR, things like argument parsing, things like accessing V8 flags, Node essentially. Node exposing those. Another thing that was brought up by Ahmad Nasri was packaging or distributing CLI apps as like self-contained, essentially binaries, like, I don't know, like a Go CLI app or something like that. So that was kind of big on his list. And I sent him a message, but earlier I didn't really give him enough time to plan to attend this meeting, but I'd like him to come and kind of, if he has a chance to talk about his use case. And, I feel like that might be a good, good initiative for this group. But yeah, so that's kind of basically what went on. There was also, of course, the typical chatter about small core, blah 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 blah. So not super interesting or new. But yeah, we had like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 people in there. So it was a good group. Anyhow, that's kind of the first thing on the agenda. Was this is the meeting that we had, and that's kind of what happened. Of course, we didn't like make any decisions. It was mostly just kind of, I hesitate to call it brainstorming, but it was a discussion. So Ben, you were there. Anything to add?
No, I mean, we definitely had a pretty long conversation about whether RimRaf was against the philosophy of small core. That was a solid 20 minutes. I have some thoughts from TC39 that I attended immediately afterwards, which was the idea that maybe some things like RimRaf could be in kind of a standard module, like a node scope, and maybe that would help diffuse some of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt around having some of these features in core. But maybe that's a different topic.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. Do you want to talk about that right now?
Yeah, sure. Is Ian on the call as well?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so we did bring up, we brought up RimRaf as Chris says, is one of kind of the canonical things we've been kicking around in the tooling working group. And I think, some people were concerned just because it's a fairly complex feature and it has fairly sophisticated behavior, as you know, like it has to wait for, it's non-atomic, it works differently than other file system operations, right? then after the conference, I proceeded to go to TC39, where I've been advocating UUID in what would eventually be a built-in module in potentially the JavaScript specification. There's actually, and that actually wasn't too controversial. I think a lot of folks, I'm sure it'll be controversial once we get further along, but a lot of the initial people I talked to were actually really excited about this as a path forward for some of these little utility modules. So I'm kind of wondering, like, maybe that's a path forward for some of these more complex libraries we'd like to have in Node Core. Maybe they're actually in a standard, say, Node.js namespace or something in the versus being, say, built into the FS module. And we already were kind of talking about this by putting it into a different space than FS already, right?
Hasn't there been like a long ongoing conversation though about that module namespace? Like whether it's like at Node.js or whatever. I thought there was a GitHub issue with like thousands of comments about it.
Oh yeah, it's a hot mess.
So do we want to touch that?
I don't know. Maybe it could help unblock the logjam. I mean, I came in pretty passionately to that thread when I was working at NPM, and it was like, no, we should use the same syntax as NPM, and we should not use the @ symbol and use the /. I'm way less. I care way less now. I think it's about the value of having a core, some built-in modules. I don't really care about the semantics of it. Yeah, so I don't know. Worth thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I kind of don't really understand, like, okay, what TC39 has to do with standard modules, and B, if they are standardized, like how does that, why would Node have a specific thing? Like, what is it? Doesn't make any sense to me, right?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Well, this is not solidified. I'm just wondering, like, is this, maybe we don't want to tie ourselves to this. That's fair. That's a fine point. But I would say, like, maybe there'd be less, if we're in a world where we are extending the core JavaScript and the core Node APIs, and we're doing so through these built-in modules, it might be less friction than introducing a new, something that's off to the side of FS that has these more complex FS features. Just a thought.
So by built-in modules, you mean what exactly?
I just mean that we stop introducing new things like FS or HTTP, and we have something that resembles a scope that would have these things. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another, really. I think it's just a path forward for information theory, essentially, where these things live.
I think if that namespace existed already, then it would definitely make sense to publish in there. But it's kind of a minefield of trying to figure out what that namespace actually is.
No, it's totally a chicken or egg problem. I just wonder if it comes down to, like, listen, we understand, a chunk of the Node ecosystem still really wants to adhere to the small core philosophy. We get this. Core stays small, but here's a set of blessed modules that are extensions to core that live in this namespace. Maybe starts to be an easier philosophical discussion. It's just the thought I've been kicking around.
I mean, I guess part of the idea for me is that, whether it's technically built into core or not, when you install Node, you should get this stuff. I wouldn't want somebody to have to npm install it, because you can just npm install rimraf instead, and that's what people have been doing. So
yeah, I'm in strong agreement, but I do kind of think, like, if we do make progress forward with the idea of import maps, which is the kind of the idea of a replacement to what people use for require extensions right now. It lets you basically import foo as bar, is the idea of import maps. One could imagine a world where, Node 13 or whatever ships with the rimraf, and then we backport import maps to Node all the way back to say Node 11 or something, and then someone can ship the shim of rimraf with Node 11, run an identical application on Node 11, but when you get Node 13, you know you're going to get this set of modules that have gone into that extended namespace. There's some benefits to it.
All right. Anything else from TC39 that you wanted to bring up?
Lots of discussions around modules, but no real paths forward yet. But lots of folks were excited about UUID, which I think is super exciting, and it kind of dovetails with some of the work we want to do in the tooling group, which is like, wouldn't that be cool if Node just got UUID because it was part of the JavaScript language now?
And so that means that once it's in, it comes down with V8?
Not necessarily. It's more about it would potentially go into the specification for JavaScript, which would say to be a JavaScript to be like a compliant engine, you have this module and this module and this module, like UUID. Then maybe Node has its own implementation, or maybe it comes down through V8. But it's just more of a like this. We've agreed that this is something that the engine should have.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. So let's see. So Ian, any movement on your SHUtil stuff?
Yeah, I did some work on the weekend. I had some time to kill in the airport. So I did some work on trying to get the linter passing. I'm mostly done with that, although I do have a couple strange ones that I'm still working out. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I was hoping to try and resolve those today. And then, yeah, I was getting ready to put up a PR, although there's now another PR as of this morning, so.
Yeah, well, I suspect that particular PR is not going to get very far.
I took a look at it. And yeah, I mean, I think there are some issues with that particular implementation. It looks like kind of a partial rewrite of rimraf. Like, it's definitely based on the original rimraf code, and excludes the globbing, but it also excludes a lot of the like edge case handling for Windows file permissions and Solaris and whatever other crazy stuff is in rimraf. Which, I mean, all that stuff is in there because of bugs and lots of work that went into bug fixes. So I think just removing, I mean, that's kind of the reason we chose to go this direction as well, of just like directly porting rimraf so that we capture all of that.
I mean, if Node can't provide a rimraf that is at least as good as userland, there's really no point. So,
right.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the topics of conversation at the Node tooling session. Actually, was like, it's maybe worse to provide something that's half baked than nothing at all.
Yeah. Right, and then the other issue is he implemented it in a way similar to MakeDerp, where it's a flag to rimdir, which we've kind of talked about. Like, that makes feature detection difficult, and people kind of wish that MakeDerp had been implemented differently. So it's another potential issue.
Adding Raphael here.
Okay.
Right. Right. Well, so do you need anything with the SHUtil stuff? I mean, you're still going to send the PR, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, I guess what is sort of the immediate path forward here? I was planning. I'm almost finished with the linter fixes, so I was planning to submit the PR unless we feel anything's changed, whether that's because of this other PR or because of discussions you guys had at the Collaborator Summit.
I don't think a huge amount's changed. Like I think we should submit it and not expect. Like, I expect it will be a giant like it will create a giant conversation, but I think it's good to create that giant conversation and then just see what the community is feeling. Like, because this is a super interesting one where it's like just right on the cusp of like, should it be core, should it not, and like what side does the community zeitgeist land on? I'm super interested to see a PR open.
So I shouldn't get my hopes up for getting it merged, is what you're saying.
I'm not in the next like week, probably.
Yeah.
All right. I mean,
interesting conversation. I'd even like to use it. I would like to use it to tease some of these conversations about modules too, if that doesn't frustrate you too much. Like I think we should. I'm pretty confident we might eventually land this, but it's probably going to take a month or two, right? It's probably going to take some time.
That's kind of why I was thinking, like, there is more work that I want to do, for example, writing like additional tests and things like that and writing docs, but I was kind of thinking maybe just put it up before that's ready, because that probably is going to be sort of an ongoing conversation for a while.
Yeah, I think that's worthwhile, and just we'll keep it civil, and just like some people I'm sure will come in on one side of the conversation, some people will come in on the other side of the conversation, and just kind of, as long as we don't go in hoping it lands in 2 weeks, I think we can stop it from being too frustrating.
Right. Okay. I'll wrap up these last few linting bugs today then and try and get that in.
All right.
It's probably worth coordinating. Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say it's probably just worth coordinating with that other issue too, and say like, listen, here's kind of what we were thinking from the tooling group. Maybe we can combine efforts, just so the other person doesn't feel like we swooped in just to squash their PR.
Right. If you had a PR open in Node that sat there for a long time before?
I don't think so. Why?
Okay, so
I feel like you're trying to prepare me for something.
I am. So like it can get pretty frustrating. Like the longer it sits, the more people comment on it, and the more people comment on it, the more changes people want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like if you are feeling frustrated, I'm certainly willing to go in and like hack on some of those changes that people want, just to like, just make it less like frustrating for you, because I've been there. So.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. We'll see how it goes, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe another interesting thing to maybe send us a gist over before you open the PR. That's just like the PR you plan on opening in terms of your wording, just because we can.
Oh, right, for the actual like issue description.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think the way you write that's going to help encourage the type of feedback you get. So just crafting that really well is good.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll definitely.
And you know what though, like I think what would be really helpful is if, and maybe like really impactful, is if whoever in this group is interested in commenting or reviewing that code, like if we can come together like as a common front of like, these are the reasons why we want this in here. Essentially these are our talking points, and this is our platform. And I think if we are careful not to like start disagreeing amongst ourselves, things may go a little more smoothly, at least.
This was kind of why I was thinking a little bit about the Node.js namespace, was because one of the topics of conversation that came up was that there would be namespaces for some platforms where so it doesn't make sense for FS functionality to be in JavaScript as a whole, because the web browser doesn't give you FS access. Node gives you FS access. So there was a conversation that there might be some Node specific libraries that Node would have its own namespace that's different from lib or different from standard library or whatever the heck ultimately the standard JavaScript commons ends up being called. So like rimref fits this bag so well, because like you would never in a million years have rimref in the browser, but it makes a lot of sense in Node. So kind of, I don't know. I also don't want to derail the conversation and suddenly have it be 6 months to land this thing. So it's a balance.
Jan, I wanted you to know that with Yao, we reviewed the code and worked with it and build a prototype with the change we are planning to do for libuv for the file's performance improvement, and everything looks fine. No issue, nothing to raise.
Thank you.
I can also warn you of the exact opposite. I think Node Core is in kind of a weird place right now. So people just might ignore your PR. That's also a possibility. I've seen like really cool and important PRs just hang there. So really, you can't know what's
All
going on.
right, I'll prepare for all eventualities. Hate mail, being ignored.
I mean, it's certainly a certain amount of like promotion on other channels seems to help draw attention towards these PRs sometimes. So like that's something worth considering too, as silly as it might sound.
Any recommended other channels?
I mean, Twitter's probably
Yes.
the biggest one, obviously, but like,
Snapchat.
All right,
yeah, definitely get on the Instagram and all that. Yeah,
I'll put together a Snapchat story for it. All right, well, yeah, I'll definitely tweet it out once I've published the PR for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to think because it fits with, I think, with some of his goals for the project right now. So they'll probably help get some eyeballs on it too. He's pretty involved with some of this aspect of the platform.
Okay. Cool. So let's see. The other thing was this arg parsing stuff, and so yeah, in that meeting at the Collab Summit, you know, yeah, there was a lot going on, but I mean, one of the things that somebody brought up was like, you know, we could do something like I guess there's some sort of get opt type thing in Ruby, and essentially it works kind of like you would parse command line options in a bash script where you iterate over the stuff and then there's like a switch. I don't know. Anyway, I guess I tried to explain that, you know, if we're doing this, and you know, we want to use essentially what the community has decided on, like how these APIs should look and what's important, and pick a minimum set of things. But again, is somebody that, of course, that's not going to be good enough for everybody because they want like total control over blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and if you want total control, you can use what's there already. But essentially, yeah, I mean, Ben, what was your impression of there? Because we talked about it very briefly, I think, argument parsing.
Yeah, I mean, Justin, who was there and also works at Google, seemed pretty excited. He was the one suggesting like the idea of iterators instead of an object-based thing. I talked to him a bit more about that afterwards, and he was saying that like it would be a one-liner to turn that iterator into an object. So I think maybe we could figure out. I don't know. I'm curious to hear his point of view, just because he'd be an advocate of it. I don't know. I'd say like if you look at, you did a good literature review. I mean, most of the community seems to have, most of the JavaScript folks seem to use something that's similar to the minimalist approach of just arguments onto an object, right? So I don't know. Might be worth continuing to push on this feature. I feel like rimraf was more controversial than argument parsing, to be perfectly honest, or we fixated on rimraf more. I personally, just from the point of view of like, I write a lot, my people in my position at Google write a lot of sample code, and just like having an argument parser and top level await would both be awesome just for making cleaner samples. So that's my point of view.
Yeah. So, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your first name. Is it Rui?
Yeah, Rui. It's good. Good enough.
Okay. you sent you didn't send the PR, but you like sent a PR against your own fork or something, but you had implemented something. I didn't get a chance to look at what exactly you implemented, but and I only added you to the repository where the specification issue. Did you get you probably didn't get a chance to look at that yet.
I just got the invitation and accept. So I could see the first issue there is in there. Yeah, but
Okay.
I didn't have the time yet. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, if you want, like, I think it would be cool if you could just like take a look at that first issue in there, which kind of describes what we were thinking the minimum set of stuff would be. But I mean, if you're interested in implementing this, that would be great because nobody else is really doing it at the moment. So
yeah, I just wanted to try. I
lost you there.
Sorry. So I tried to just start the PR with the docs so that we can at least see where is an API that people can agree on, right? But we can move that discussion to your collaboration repo. I can maybe make the PR against that repo instead.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that is essentially for like a proof of concept. I mean, it's obviously not a fork of Node or anything. It's just
right. I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So
Yeah,
however you want to do it.
Yeah. But basically, I only put a small set of docs. Basically, I wrote the doc page for potential API for the argument parsing, right? So there's not really an implementation yet, nor tests. It's basically just trying to agree on this basic API. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if you want to at least like cross-reference your changes in that issue, that would be helpful, and then we can go take a look, or I don't know, whatever is going to be the easiest way to collaborate there. But yeah. Sure. So thank you for starting work on that. Yeah. Let's see what's happening in my neck of the woods. So what I'm working on right now is not, I mean, I'm building a tool because that's essentially all I know how to do. But so I'm building a tool, and what it does is it consumes and processes and does handy things with diagnostic reports. And so diagnostic reports is an experimental API. It's like process report. And it basically it creates a JSON dump of a bunch of info, including like what's on the heap and your memory usage and CPU usage and a whole bunch of other stuff like that. And so I'm making a tool to essentially take that information and do something useful with it, because it can be a lot of information and it's not always obvious. And so there are little bits of functionality, but one of the things is it's kind of like a linter, where in goes the report and out comes potential problems or things you should look at. And so as part of that work, I have at least a couple initiatives to improve those reports, those diagnostic reports in core. And so I think I'm going to try to send a pull request, hopefully later today, to add some information that is, in my opinion, missing from the report. So that's just kind of like what I'm up to, not directly related, but in case anybody was wondering what the hell I'm doing instead of other things, that's what I'm doing. So looks like Michelle left. I was going to ask him if he had anything else to bring up, but since he left, I cannot. Anybody got anything they want to bring up?
Do we want to talk more about the distributing CLI tools as self-contained binaries, or do you want to wait for Ahmad for that?
I don't know, Ben. Do you think you can like summarize that or like speak to that at all? Like I kind of understood.
Sorry, I'd like to sneeze. We're going to try to talk. Probably be good to have a mod on it because we had some strong opinions. But the basic idea was that maybe this would be something we should eventually have in Node Core, is the ability to package very concise binary applications that just run some bundle of npm modules combined with the Node runtime. And Joe Yi, who works on the Node.js project, was saying that we're actually kind of close in terms of having an API to do this. It's just not very well documented. So it sounds super interesting.
I don't recall exactly what his use case was. I know he said somebody, like his clients, wanted that for some reason. Do you remember?
I mean, I would want it just because if you're working on a team that, say, isn't all Node.js developers, it's nice to be able to deliver a binary to the team that they don't need to get a Node runtime up and running. It's useful.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it sounds like this is something that we would absolutely be interested in, because essentially it enables more tools, better tools, things, you know, they can be distributed more easily. And I think that is a good thing. There are a few different ways to go about it. I thought I remembered something about V8 snapshots in core. I don't remember who I talked to about that, or if that was even in this group or not, but that's like another way you could go at it.
I think it was Raphael that brought that up in our previous meeting.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like it would be a great fit for something like this. You could have like a tool like Yarn or NPM or something as a binary with a in-memory snapshot, could start up right away. Like, that sounds great.
So then part of the thing is then, you know, people, you do this, and what you distribute is essentially Node and a bunch of JavaScript or something like that, right? And people are going to start complaining like they do about Electron, right? Oh, there's all this stuff, it takes up too much memory, and it's just not, the load time's too slow, and yada, yada, yada. I don't know, like, so like, if you could trim the things out of Node that you didn't want. So if your command line tool didn't use, it only used a subset of the built-in modules, like, could we leave them out somehow? And I don't know the answer to that. It's probably not, it's certainly not easily done, I think. And even if it was, like, how would you would have to have some sort of tool to like essentially like a Webpack thing where you say, okay, I want this and that, and ignore these other things and whatnot. I wouldn't want to try to foist something on the release team that says, okay, now instead of all these various LTS versions of Node for all these different architectures, we're going to exponentially increase the size of that build matrix by having a Node that's just for command line tools and doesn't, doesn't have things like HTTP in it or whatever. So yeah, maybe that's just like down the road, but it's I can foresee that being a major complaint once these CLI apps are distributed this way. People are just going to start complaining that they're slow and take up too much memory.
I think it's a super good direction for Node, though, because like if you think of part of why I think people are so willing to.
You're dropping off.
Feels like they're downloading something, whereas, yeah, so.
Kind of missed most of that.
Yeah, we missed all that, Ben. Can you repeat it?
Oh, I was just saying it would probably reduce some FUD around installing Node.js tools.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about the similar, like this proposition, and I think that we can look at it in terms of like the deployment of such a tool and release in a different manner than the official, the full-blown node release. I think it would be definitely more useful for like the three major platforms, and probably will require less like LTS and backwards compatibility. So I was thinking anyway of like making such a, just tip of the tree for the three major platforms. Yeah, like a trimmed down and like different batteries included sort of package. I think that's a really interesting proposal for CLI tools, etc. And like small apps, local apps, where you don't need OpenSSL, you don't need HTTP, you don't need HTTP2. Like we have a lot of stuff that's useful for servers and web servers, not so much for CLI tools and small apps.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but we started this initiative on the build work group. We call it unofficial builds for semi-orphan platforms like ARM6 and FreeBSD and even Linux on 32-bit, where we supply the knowledge and the like basic infrastructure, and we run those builds on a best effort manner whenever there is a release cut. So we can like set up a build script for those and get stuff without all the encumbrance of like a full-blown node release, and support SLA also.
Did you have you said you talked the build?
It's already up and running. I think it's unofficial builds.node.js. So we have a repo that's Node.js/unofficial builds, and unofficial builds.nodejs.org is our release repo, like a release storage. So it's already out there.
Could you paste the URL in the chat or something, please?
So these are just the products of some scripts and some build formula that we run whenever a release is cut for stuff that's not experimental. That's how we call it in Node Core. So to this like branch, we can add whatever, and it just happens again, and whenever it breaks, the official the party line is fix it yourself. Like nobody's gonna support this. It's a best effort venture, but I think it's nice, and I think like it should work for most things.
What I was wondering, why don't we invite some folks from site for the next tooling group meeting and see if they have any thoughts. They might even be happy to not maintain as much of NCC.
Invite Zeit. Who exactly would we invite?
Maybe Guy, if Guy's not, because Guy's even been involved with some of the stuff we're doing.
Oh, to see, I didn't know he was working for them. Okay.
We could just ask them. Like I know a couple of people that work on Next.js. We could just ask if they could suggest anyone that might be interested as well.
Yeah, and in terms of tree shaking the model tree, It's based on tools and concepts that are already in like Zeit and Webpack and Rollup, etc. So like the thing is already there. If somebody really, I think you can see some of those around, like people who are really committed, have made those kind of scripts that repackage Node binary to do different things and even make it cross-platform, etc. So
I mean, even if, you know, lib in Node.js, if all the JavaScript used ES modules, and we could tree shake that, but how would we tree shake the C++?
yeah, it's a small extension. It's not that far. So the C++ essentially, it's a lot of glue, and then there are like big chunks that you can shake off, like OpenSSL and HTTP2 and HTTP, like LLHTTP parsing, and zlib and broadly. So those are like things, and like we have histogram rendering. So like you can shake those whole things off, and those are big chunks. And you know what we keep in /source is not that much. It's like it's a tiny bit. It's not that a lot of code, so it won't hurt.
Are most or I feel like there are some like build flags that will allow you to not include support for things, but
yeah, you can build like most of those libraries, especially for like Debian, will like strongly advocate having everything as a lib. So we build Node as a completely dynamically linked to everything, like even links against libuv, OpenSSL's lib, HTTP2, everything is built, and even V8 is dynamically linked. So we have that in build scripts already. So it's actually a kind of fairly modular. So definitely somebody will have to, it's not going to be free. Somebody will have to, if somebody wants to make his own tool, they'll have to figure out some things and find out the right parameters and test it. But it's not light years away. It's like it's a few weeks work.
That sounds cool. I don't know if personally I will have time to play with that, but I would like to if I did. So yeah, I think we should maybe follow up with, as Ben said, Zeit, and then somebody should dig up or just, I guess, talk to Joy about what she's doing there with, I think she said it was some sort of custom bootstrapping thing that she said like it actually works, but it's undocumented and nobody's using it. So we should follow up on that and see what's.
She referring to the snapshot of.
I don't think it was snapshots. It was something about a custom bootstrap script.
Oh, yeah, that nobody uses. Yeah,
right.
But it's essentially for adding stuff, not removing.
We're talking about third-party main.
Yeah. So you can add to the bootstrapping and then compile it into the binary, and it's been there, I think, from day one, but very few people use it.
So I mean, you could just kind of stuff your code in there and make an app, right? And just like have it execute your script.
Yeah.
I mean, you could also stuff a loader in there. And so if you look at the issue that we have open, so Bradley Farias has put something together like 4 or 5 years ago that's pretty similar to this concept. And so Jody's already commented on that and mentioned some stuff. So probably makes sense to let this play out in the issue a little bit.
Do we have a link to an issue anywhere? I'm not sure which.
I'll paste it in.
Thank you. Oh. Okay, yeah, I didn't see that she actually, I thought you were talking about something else. Okay, so yeah, swell. Okay. Cool. So, does anybody have anything else they want to bring up? I'm going to, or who would like to reach out to action items, everybody? So who wants to reach out to Zeit or Guy? Ian, you said you knew some people.
Sure, yeah, I can. Just to be clear, we're talking about Guy Bedford?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Correct. I think he's doing a little bit of work for the site right now. Could be wrong.
Okay, sure. I can reach out to him and yeah, also the other people I know on Next.js and see if they have anyone else that might be interested.
Yeah, I guess that was, and Ben, that was like, let's talk to them about NCC and what are we trying to get out of that?
I think just don't reinvent the wheel if a few folks in the
Right.
community are doing similar stuff.
Okay.
I just posted something in our Slack channel. There's one like last lint error that I'm not really, it's a bit tricky. I'm not exactly sure how to fix it. So I just posted the code in there and the error that I'm getting. So if anyone has any ideas, it's like a
Wrong
try.
Slack, man.
It's like a try without a catch, but it has a finally, and then there's a continue in the finally. So, I mean, I don't want to rewrite it and change the behavior subtly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's kind of the last thing that I need to fix.
Okay.
Just add no lint. Really?
Really?
Yeah. Just put a no lint and say this is verbatim from RenRaf.
Okay. All right, that I can do.
Weird. Anyway. Okay. Right. And then there's that issue 32 talking about that stuff. I'll see if I can get a mod to participate, or at the very least just kind of comment on an issue and give us some more information. So.
Is number 32, is that also the one where we want to share with Zeit? It's all the same stuff, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same idea.
Okay.
All right, well, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you everyone for hanging out, and I'll see you on the internet and hopefully again in 3 weeks' time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
See ya.